I'll be honest, I had a difficult time writing this review. Coming from the Pixio PX277H, I didn't feel as though things could get much better in this category. I mean, sure, there are variations both in terms of size and resolution, refresh rate's also something to consider, but I knew that the overall appeal of the Pixio panel, when seen in the context of its price, would be a tough one to top. That video, by the way, can be watched right here. So when asked to review the GN32LD from Viotek, I hesitated. Could this beastly panel actually change my mind? Let's start with a clean slate. This is a 32-inch, 144Hz, 1440p FreeSync VA panel. It's slightly curved, sporting an anti-glare coating, and very big. In my opinion, 32 inches is a little too big, even for a 1440p display, assuming you sit within 2 or 3 feet of it. First-person shooters especially are awkward to play on this panel, whether it be CSGO or even Call of Duty. This aspect is entirely subjective, but I do want to disclose up front that I'm not the biggest fan of 32-inch panels for gaming. Now, in reference to image quality, things are actually looking pretty great. 2560 by 1440 at a diagonal screen size of 32 inches yields a PPI of approximately 92, placing its density roughly 10% lower than that of an equivalent 27-inch panel. Something else this panel sports is a curved aspect with a radius of 1800R, meaning that the screen's curve would form a circle with an 1800mm diameter if allowed to extend. This scale explains the metric in a little more detail. It's difficult to visualize when you're just hearing me talk about it. The lower the R value, in a nutshell, the sharper the curve. 1800R is actually pretty sharp, meaning only the person sitting directly front and center will truly benefit from this. Some like the curve, others don't. In my opinion, I prefer it in ultra-wide panels, but it doesn't hurt in this case. It is not, though, something I would pay extra for if I had the option. It makes you feel a bit more immersive, but that's really about it. This monitor has a native 6 millisecond response time with an overdrive function, cutting that in half, although I will say that, I'm not one of the best when it comes to being able to visualize imperfections in monitors. I don't play first-person shooters that are really fast-paced all the time, but I noticed ghosting on this panel. Quite a bit of it, actually. More so than I'm used to, even on a typical 5 to 6 millisecond panel. Also, I was so intrigued by how blurry some of the images looked during these tests that I swapped this panel for the PX277H just to confirm that what I was seeing wasn't just me, using some sort of implicit bias to justify why this panel was bad. I could visually tell there was a distinct difference between the Viotek panel and this Pixio panel here running this test in particular. The Viotek's image just looked so much more blurry, basically, when it was scrolling across the screen, while the Pixio's looked very smooth even at this high scrolling speed. That, in a nutshell, is ghosting, when the image from the previous frame is kind of left. It's like a little remnant that appears just for a split second behind the next frame, and it gives you sort of a weird blur, a trail where the image would have been prior. And it's noticeable here, and in fast-paced games, it will probably be a problem. Look, honestly, unless you're playing an FPS game, you're not going to notice, and I mean that. I only noticed this when I ran this particular test here, but it is worth pointing out because many people do play first-person shooters, and I was a little disappointed. Despite being VA technology, this is the first panel where I've actually questioned whether it was my eyes deceiving me or not, because it was so obvious during a few of these tests. On to some good stuff though. Backlight bleed is practically non-existent here, a trait that has plagued many an IPS panel in the past. My PX277H didn't suffer this, but many still do, and that's why I'm stating it in this video. Simply put, the chances of severe backlight bleed along bezels is higher in IPS monitors. Now with that said, you can probably return that panel if you complain enough. If the backlight bleed is obvious enough, usually you can get your money back. The remainder of the panel is fairly clean. A small red Viotek logo sits dead center underneath, along with a bezel significantly thicker than its surrounding counterparts, though I don't really see this as too much of a problem, and when gaming, I'm not really bothered by the slim bezels, just because I think the panel is so big that it really dwarfs the tiny bezels around the top, left, and right. Underneath, you'll find a single DVI port, an interesting inclusion, HDMI port, a display port, and a headphone jack. Now, Viotek doesn't explicitly state which HDMI variant this is, so I expect 1.4, not 2.0. know. Check the description though for any correction made to this video. I can also confirm that DisplayPort is 1.2, not 1.4, so we're not the most up-to-date in terms of our display outs. The on-screen display is the same one we've seen in previous Viotek panels. There was really nothing wrong with it to begin with, so I'm kind of glad to see a similar layout. Now I know that not many people, like the crowded feel of this OSD, but the multiple customization options are more than welcome, and I'll take that any day of the week over simplicity, if you will. Physical buttons for the OSD reside underneath the display toward the right and are pretty straightforward. They're also very tactile, so you definitely know when you push them. The primary issue though that I have with the GN32LD is its sheer size. And this monitor easily occupies 2 feet of depth on a desk, and that's thanks to a few things. For one, the AC adapter is integrated. Now I love seeing this, and it explains why the panel is a bit thicker, but a consequence of such an inclusion is added weight on top of a panel that's already very big. This is one of the heaviest panels I've ever used, and Viotek remedied the situation with a beefy 3-legged stand and neck. The legs themselves spread out far too wide in my opinion, and the thickness of the neck makes it seem even larger. I'm not joking, this setup is massive, and my 34-inch ultrawide Viotek panel, let's say for example, that is comparable in size, not necessarily in weight, requires a much smaller stand. I don't know why they didn't just throw a smaller stand onto this thing and maybe trim down on some of the weird cosmetic things going on the backside of the panel. I mean, you're not going to see the backside of your panel, so why waste time and money and design effort to sculpt something that looks okay on the backside that you'll never see? In my opinion, this culmination ruins the aesthetic appeal of the monitor, taking up too much real estate on a desk that's likely already crammed and looking too good on the side of the panel that you'll never see. On top of this, you can't swivel the monitor left or right, so it's not very ergonomic. Instead, we're just left with height and tilt support. Now, evasive mounting is an option, but you'll need a thick, that's 2C, stand to bolster the weight of this panel. Look, in short, I don't feel this is the best 1440p option on the market. Despite its competitive $450 or so US dollar price tag, its form factor may be best suited for console gaming, where gamers typically hang out several feet from their displays, though the high refresh rate here would go unused, and to be honest, if you like sitting super close to a huge 32-inch panel, more power to you. It's great to see 144Hz and more affordable panels nowadays, and the bump to 1440p is certainly appreciated, but the stance of this thing just bothers me too much. Its footprint is far too big, its screen is far too big, and its price tag honestly makes it an okay deal, if you even want to call it one. In all honesty, if I had to choose between this and the PX277, I'd choose the 277. Slightly better color reproduction with IPS technology, no backlight bleed, at least on this panel, though I can't really speak to QC concerns as a reviewer because they may have opened my box beforehand to make sure nothing's wrong with it, a slim profile, and an even lower price that you'll find on that 277. That's just me though. If you're looking for a 32-inch option with comparable specs elsewhere, then the GN32LD might be the perfect monitor for you. And that's fine, but for me it's not. You can check out our affiliate links to both these panels, by the way, in the video description. You can let me know in the comments what you think of both of these gaming monitors and which one you would choose if you had the choice. Give this video a thumbs up if you thought it was cool, dislike it if you feel the complete opposite, or if you hate everything about life. You guys can click that red subscribe button if you haven't already. You can join us if you want to give us a little bit of money for some kickbacks in the comments and chats and all that good stuff. We'll catch you in the next video. This is Science Studio. Thanks for learning with us.